Hey everybody, I'm Heidi with the Sunride Tribe, and today we're going to do a how-to on installing your propane stove in your van. Alright, so here's everything that we're going to need to install our cooktop. The cooktop we went with was the Ramblewood green gas cooktop. It is already rated for propane. You can modify it for natural gas if you're putting it in a house. But that was one of the reasons we chose this product, was because it was not going to need to be converted from natural gas to propane. It's already ready to go. It comes with a cutout board, so you can trace that onto your countertop. It also comes with pretty much all of the accessories that you're going to need. Now it does come with its own regulator. However, from what I've read online, it doesn't work very well, especially if you're hooking it up to a propane tank like we have over here. So we went ahead and purchased a hose that already has the regulator built into it. It's a single stage regulator because we're only hooking our propane tank up to this. If in the future you are hooking up a propane tank to your stove and a hot water heater or a propane heater in your van, then you're going to need a two-stage regulator. The other thing that we liked about this model was that the ignition runs off of a battery, so that should be pretty easy to replace in the future. A lot of the stoves that you find have to be plugged into a regular 110, 120 volt outlet, which we didn't want to run another outlet just to take up space to install a igniter. There are some 12 volt models out there, however they're hard to find, they're limited, they're more expensive, and they're much larger than this stove is here. So we decided to go with that. We also went with a 10-gallon propane tank that we got at a local RV store. Again, space is limited in a van, so we want something that could fit into the cabinet but still allow us storage space in the same cabinet. Now the only extra thing that you need to get for this stove is one of these. It's an adapter. And the reason you need that is because the gas inlet on the back of the stove is not going to work unless you have one of these adapters to be able to hook your regulator and stuff up to it. So I know this has been a hang-up for a lot of people. Fortunately, it was easy to find on Amazon. There's someone who actually uses these stoves exclusively in their van builds, and this is what they use as an adapter, so we're going to give it a shot. Everything you see here, other than the propane tank, we purchased on Amazon. I'm sure you can find a propane tank on Amazon as well. The last thing we liked about this stove is the company is out of Colorado. They have a reputation for great customer service, so if anything goes wrong or if you have any issues with the install, you can give them a call. They'll send you replacement parts, no problem, and they'll walk you through whatever your issues are. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this yellow thread tape for gas, and we're going to put it on this inlet right here so we can put our adapter on.
There's plenty of time. Never your fault when bridges may burn. Got the right rhymes, yeah, but no words when you miss the turn. The end is on its way. There isn't any place to escape it. No, it's calling out your name. It's time to finally turn around and face it.
Alright, so that's on there hand tight. I'm gonna go back with a wrench later on in the process and make sure that it's on there really good. You do want to be careful though, because this piece is plastic, so you don't want to crack it. Otherwise you're gonna have to replace the entire stove. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install the brackets that are going to connect to the countertop. As you can see, I already have one installed here on this side because I wanted to test fit it. But basically there's 4 brackets that go about in each corner and 4 screws. Now the brackets are kind of strange. They have this U shape on them, and we weren't sure which way they were supposed to go, but we did confirm that the U shape is supposed to go against the body of the stove so that when you tighten it down, it has something to latch onto the counter with.
It's calling out your name. It's time to finally turn around and face it. Face it. We feel like flowers every moment.
And that's pretty much it for those. I'm not going to tighten them down all the way until I get it into the countertop. It also comes with a couple rolls of this foam gasket that need to go around the outside of the edge of the stove here. There's a little crevice that goes all the way around. So I think rather than trying to loop it around, I'm just going to put it on each side and cut it.
Every moment. Spend all our time fixing what's broken. Let's live for now. Let's live for now.
As you can see, that gasket doesn't seem to stick all that great. I don't know if that's because of the temperature here or just the glue that's on the gasket itself, but we'll see how it goes when we install it. And the last thing I'm going to do on this side is I'm just going to go ahead and install the ignition battery. It does come with one, but keep in mind if you go with this model, you're going to need access to a size D battery. We'll see how long this lasts, if we end up having to carry any on the road or how often we have to replace it. Alright, and that's pretty much it for this part of the install. Let's take it out to the van and see if we can get it in the countertop. I lied. Alright, so the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hook up our hose and regulator to our adapter that we put on. Once again, we're just going to be using the yellow gas tape. I'm going to put it on the threads here and then screw that on.
Don't leave another word unspoken. Or get stuck going through the motions. Let's live for now.
Alright, so we're back out in the van. We're going to go ahead and pop the stove top in. Alright, so it's a pretty tight fit on there, especially with that seal that we put on. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten down the brackets. So here's what the underside looks like. I had to loosen these 2 brackets a little bit more just to get them in so the stovetop would sit flush with the countertop. But now that they're in, we should be good to go.
Let's live for now. Let's do it right.
And that's it. The stove is secured to the countertop. Alright, so we've got all of our fittings on there and our grid. Next thing is we're going to hook it up to the propane and test it out. Alright, hey everybody, we are back to finish up this stove project. I had to go get our propane tank filled, and I was also waiting on our mount to come in, so I just ordered this mount to hold the propane tank in place while we're traveling, so I'm going to go ahead and get that installed today. But before I go into that project, we're going to test our propane lines and see if the stove works. Alright, so first thing is we're going to go ahead and hook up our hose that has the built-in regulator.
A flip script, I'm not the same man. Watch the past fly, yeah.
Now this regulator actually has this knob on here that you can open or close the valve line. So basically it gives you two ways to open and close. This is going to be the main valve to open and close the propane tank, and then this one open and closes the line. So I guess if you were going to be using the tank intermittently but didn't want to waste the gas, you could go ahead and open this one and then close this one and open it when you want to use it. Obviously during travel or if you're not using it for a long time, it's best to just keep everything off. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check our connections. We've got a brand new spray bottle here, and we just put some soapy water, dish soap, into it, and I'm going to turn the propane on, and we're going to spray it on the connections and see what happens. And you can see right there, and you can hear it, we have some bubbles coming up from that connection. That's a no bueno. We're going to have to go back and check that out. We got this thread fixed, which is good to go now, but when I was spraying this one to test it out, then I noticed this one up here that actually connects to the stove from our adapter that we had to order also had some small bubbles coming up. And what I noticed was I didn't actually put the thread tape all the way across the threads. So when I screwed this thing in, it basically went past where the tape was, and so some gas was leaking through. So I took the thread apart, put some new tape on it, and now we're going to test it out. And that's what you want to see. No bubbles at all coming out of where any of the parts meet each other. Alright, now the moment of truth. Let's see if we can get it to light.
No more excuses on my flowers, take the Lord's hand. The end is on its way. The end is on its way. The end is on its way. We feel like flowers every moment. Spend all our time fixing what's broken. There's nothing.
Alright. Burners seem to be working pretty well. We don't have any leaks coming from anywhere. I'm going to say this project was a success. Alright, just a couple extra things I want to talk about. We are carrying a fire extinguisher inside of our vehicle. You should probably do the same. There are also storage lockers, propane lockers, that some people build into their vans. You can also get one of those outside undermount propane tanks if you can afford to do one of those. They are quite a bit more expensive than the traditional tank, but then you can carry it outside the vehicle and you don't have to worry about venting. Now, we are obviously choosing to just put it in a cabinet. We're not going to build a propane locker specifically, but what we are going to do is there is a vent port on the other side of the dial for the propane tank where the gas comes out, and what we're going to do is attach a hose with a C-clamp to that and run that hose through the bottom of the cabinet and vent it outside of the van that way. That is our plan, along with securing it with the bracket that I showed you earlier. It should be pretty safe. Of course, as always, you should turn your propane off, whether it's inside or outside the van when traveling, or when not in use at all. We're also going to be installing a propane / carbon monoxide detector in our van. We found one online that we have ordered. We're waiting for it to arrive so we can install it. It runs off of 12 volts, so we can just plug it right in to our fuse block and don't have to worry about batteries or anything else. But if you are going to do propane in your van, it's highly recommended that you get a propane alarm to place inside, because the propane is heavier than air. So if it does happen to leak out, it's going to leak out and settle down towards the bottom. You might smell it, you might not, but for safety's sake, it's always something nice to have. I also want to mention that we are not propane experts by any means, or professional installers, plumbers, or anything like that. So this was just a video to show you how we're doing it. I hope it helped anyone who is thinking about installing propane in their van for their cooktop versus doing induction, or if you were looking for this specific cooktop and its functions and how to install it. As always, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below. We will link everything for you that we used or talked about in this video in the description as well. And until next time, bye. Spend all our time fixing what's broken. Let's live for now. Let's live for now.